helplessness is your best friend, savage.
Yes, I'm back doing another Feminist Frequency video. Why? These videos are unintentionally one of the most hilarious things on the internet. That's if she wasn't being so serious.
A trope is a common pattern in a story or a recognizable attribute in a character that conveys information to the audience. A trope becomes a cliché when it's overused. Sadly, some of these tropes often perpetuate offensive stereotypes.
Well, congratulations, you managed to read the definition from a dictionary. I doubt she actually understands the meaning of it, but that's beside the point.
Every now and then in Hollywoodland, a character that's identified as feminist will magically make its way through the production process and appear on our television screens. Unfortunately, this is almost never good.
Jesus Christ, she is never happy with anything unless it's exactly to her specifications.
What the Hollywood machine turns out is a distorted and warped version of feminism, which bears little resemblance to actual feminist movements.
You know, because as we all know, feminism is such a pure and noble thing. Like, you know, there's that blog, a man is a raped for if... Oh, wait a minute, excuse me if I'm not overly sympathetic to you and your cause.
In a desperate quest to distance themselves, their plots, and their characters from anything that could in any way be mistakenly mistaken for feminism, Hollywood writers rely on one of the most deceptive and disgusting tropes ever to be forged in the fires of Mount Doom.
A big wooden cross. So every time you feel unappreciated for all your sacrifices, you can climb on up and nail yourself to it.
That trope is called the straw feminist. In television and movies, the straw feminist works by deliberately creating an exaggerated character of a feminist, which writers then fill with a bunch of oversimplifications, misrepresentations, and stereotypes to try to make it easy to discredit or delegitimize feminism.
I'm fairly certain the irony of that sometimes you act like a straw feminist is completely lost on you.
The goal is to make feminists and our movements look completely ridiculous, over the top, and unnecessary.
Which it is.
In terms of media representation, one of the most disturbing examples of the straw feminist can be found in the third season of Veronica Mars.
Okay, something that I openly admit, I have not watched Veronica Mars in any way, shape or form, and I will not do so for the sake of this video.
Sadly, the Veronica Mars writing team turned the last season into a train wreck, partially by introducing a group of straw feminists as the villains in the series. Characters like these serve to undermine and discredit feminist movements, but they also serve to separate female leads who are smart and strong and witty, in this case Veronica, from any association with feminism. The straw feminist character is part of a fictional post-feminist world that only exists in Hollywood.
Keyword being fictional. These are fictional characters, therefore they have no real impact on real life. Therefore, if you don't like a particular show, don't watch it. Therefore, it will have no impact on your everyday life.
The trope is a tool that's used to promote the fallacy that everyone is already equal.
Which they are.
What's exceptionally frustrating is these characters often bring up legitimate feminist concerns about women's rights and women's equality, but those concerns are quickly undermined by the writers making the characters seem over the top, crazy, and extremist.
A bit like you then in some cases.
For example, the straw feminist appears in Married with Children as Marcy Darcy, the irritating and pompous neighbor.
I'd like to point out Married with Children as a comedy, therefore they take the sections of real life and push it up to the extreme for pure comedic effect.
In this case, the straw feminist is coded as the castrating wife who emasculates and dominates her docile, stupid husband.
Why do I have this disturbing image of her home life?
We see this trope repeated in Rugrats with Phil and Lil's mother, who Wikipedia describes as quite the jock and women's liber.
Well, I watched Rugrats when I was growing up, and I never considered that particular character to be a feminist. Although probably due to the fact that I probably couldn't even spell the word feminist.
And we can also recognize her as a straw feminist because of the giant woman symbol on her sweater.
I'll bet any amount of money that she probably owns or has owned a sweater not dissimilar to that at one point.
Much like Marcy, she's framed as the castrating wife who barks orders at her submissive husband.
Admittedly, it has been a few years since I've watched Rugrats, but I don't recall her ever barking orders at her husband.
In 2001's Legally Blonde, the writers threw in a straw feminist for cheap laughs who believes that the word semester is an evil conspiracy against women.
I'm sorry if I repeat myself, but Legally Blonde is a comedy which pushes their characters up to the extreme for pure comedic effect.
Take the word semester, okay? This is a perfect example of this school's discriminatory preference of semen to ovaries. That's why I'm petitioning to have next term be referred to as the winter ovester.
I bet anybody that was the face that she pulled the last time she was in bed with a man, or a woman in her case.
Another problematic example comes from the Powerpuff Girls episode Equal Fights in the 3rd season.
Actually, I did re-watch the episode Equal Fights for the sake of this video, and also because Powerpuff Girls was a very strong show for me when I was growing up. And for me, it speaks very deeply to what if you take things a little bit too far.
The girls encounter a female villain named Femme Fatale, who we can immediately see is a straw feminist because she has the oh-so-terrifying woman symbol on her mask, her clothes, and even as her weapon.
I'll bet anybody that if she could, she would build a costume exactly like that, and she would probably wear it in her videos all the time.
The episode begins with the traditional pan around Townsville, showing us that gender inequality is not a problem.
And your problem with that is...
Harmonious balance is deviously disrupted by Femme Fatale and her connivingly deceptive women's rights rhetoric.
Now that is irony!
Curiously though, Femme Fatale brings up some pretty valid points about the lack of female faces on American money.
What would make you happy? Your face on the $1 bill?
Or the lack of female superheroes in pop culture. Malicious rhetoric to see benign, routine, everyday things as a conspiracy against women and against them personally.
Now that is irony!
The writers of the Powerpuff Girls...
No, I actually did look up the writer of this particular episode, and it is a woman called Anna Keita Robbins, who also wrote Samurai Jack, Dexter's Lab, and also My Little Pony Friendship is Magic.
Black people, they always think they can accomplish everything by just sitting around.
Girls have carefully created a fantasy world without gender oppression, so that they can have the girls start seeing oppression where none exists.
Now that is irony!
The problem is, all of these things that the Powerpuff Girls are complaining about are actually happening. Girls are getting bullied on schoolyards, and women are overwhelmingly responsible for household duties. Women are being institutionally oppressed all the time in nearly every facet of our lives.
Miss, a big wooden cross. So every time you feel unappreciated for all your sacrifices, you can climb on up and nail yourself to it.
Once again, this trope is used to separate the Powerpuff Girls from any notion that they could in any way possibly be feminist characters.
Yes, because as we all know, every single female character has to be feminist or you immediately hate them and you accuse it of being patriarchy. And also, because FeministFrequency has used quite a lot of clips from Powerpuff Girls, isn't my own clip of Powerpuff Girls. Hope you enjoy.
Oh, hello girls. I didn't expect to see you here. Here you've been kicking some male butt. Good for you. Keep up the good work.
Susan B. Anthony coins, huh? Do you even know who she was?
She was,
Once upon a time, women weren't allowed to do much of anything.
Susan B. Anthony knew that that was wrong.
In 1872, she broke the law by voting, and even though she was found guilty, the feds wanted to go easy on her.
Because she was a girl!
And not send her to jail.
Well, you know, she was this, well, man. Girls should... Oh, man.
Susan B. Anthony didn't want special treatment. She wanted to be treated equally. She demanded that she be sent to jail just like any man who broke the law.
And that's exactly what we're gonna do to you.
Because, you know, awesome, funny, world-saving, independent young women, but, you know, not feminist.
Jesus Christ, it's the same old deal with you. These characters have to be strong and feminist and all that. Why didn't you go off and make your own goddamn fucking characters then?
The straw feminist is taken to a whole new level in adult animation shows such as South Park or Family Guy.
I'd like to point out, those two shows actually made their whole career about offending people. In fact, I think the list of the people that South Park and Family Guy put together have offended, this would be so long, the only surface that would be big enough to write is my dick.
In the episode I Am Peter, Hear Me Roar, the Family Guy writers took a stab at feminist attorney Gloria Allred.
I often say if you're not a feminist, then you're a bigot. I mean, there is nothing in between.
Oh my god, that's an absolute. Only Siths use absolutes.
Allred is known for taking on high-profile cases defending women who have been assaulted or harassed. In this attack, Family Guy writers created a character coincidentally named Gloria Ironbox.
Trust me, I don't think Family Guy's that is the worst character that Family Guy's ever created.
I know what boys like. I know what guys want. I know what boys like. Boys like. Boys like.
Who brainwashes Peter into thinking he is a woman after he is accused of sexual harassment. The emasculation and feminization of Peter and his sudden transformation into a feminist is played for laughs.
Which is the whole point of a comedy, or do I have to explain the definition of humor to you, or a joke?
Because, you know, nothing is worse in a patriarchal society than being a woman. Except maybe being a feminist.
You can take the notion of the patriarchy and you can shove it up your ass.
In these fictional narratives, institutional oppression and wide-scale sexism just doesn't exist.
Isn't that the whole point of feminism? Although now it seems to just devolve into people arguing about hardcore pornography and accusing men of being rapists.
It's a carefully constructed world where feminism is no longer needed.
I would argue that feminism doesn't exist even in this world.